Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Career Mode, and let's jump right into the Mission Control Center to have a look at what we're going to do today. So yeah, since we've visited and explored in the last couple of episodes the moon, next turn is Minmus. So as you can see here, the contract Explore Minmus, we are going to more or less, this is today's main mission. So flying by Minmus, gathering scientific data from Minmus and returning from a flyby of Minmus. Since more or less the same they are the same parameters as we had earlier for the exploration moon. The first part, the second part was landing, so probably after this one we're going to have to land on Minmus as well. And since we have a lot of spare space around 7 contracts, you can have a look here. So, well, what other missions are interesting? So, here, rescuing. I'm thinking whether to pick up a rescue mission, since increasing our crew of Kerbals is always useful, and the earlier we do it, the easier are the missions that we can kind of have to get those Kerbals. So, right now, Orbit Kerbin. That's pretty easy to do. Then here testing something else at launch site is something I'm going to do. Well, that's just literally launching and testing the engines, so free money for that. And planting a flag on the moon. Since we've already visited the moon, this shouldn't be a big issue, even though we're probably not going to do it right now. Still, it's 100,000 funds if we complete it. So yeah, another rescue mission and building an outpost on the moon, which might be something for later episodes, since we really do need money. Even though we have at the moment a good amount of cash at 650,000 funds, we can always kind of improve on that number. Okay, so going again about what's the difference between those two orbital kind of missions. Now having a look at our tech tree, we have 30 science points. We can't afford anything, of course, with this amount of science points, but still having a quick glance over it. Now having a look, we need 670,000 to upgrade our R&D center, which is necessary for further improvement of for more science points, new science technologies, and gathering scientific surface samples. Okay, now time warping through this recovering, testing the Juno engine mission. So we've already done the Juno engine mission, and since we've kind of already launched the craft, why not getting a few science points around the KSP? Here in 4 times regular speed is of course a lot more interesting than just kind of popping up the engine and recovering. So we get now another 20 science or so. Then having a look at other missions here on the mission board, which one is the closest to the Kerbal Space Program, since we still need some more money to upgrade our R&D, and I decided to pick the one with the conduct EVA reports on the service, so observatory services survey, sorry. So, and then I decided to let's build our very first plane in this career mode / safe / whatever you may call this, and it's a pretty easy and simple design, and we're going to have a look whether this is flyable and whether this is stable and so on and so forth. Since so far I have very bad experience in building low tier planes, since low tier planes are low tier, you get not really good at a lot of stuff. And here, pointing towards the mission marker, we slammed off our tail fins, so it reverted, since we didn't really destroy or die or do anything in particular. So I allowed myself to revert back to the launch, even though I usually don't do this in Let's Plays. So except in mission planning for sandbox missions, where I'm testing out different subsystems before recording, that is. Okay, now as you can see, I'm not flying to those places, since we have to conduct surface EVA reports, so we have to stay still in the first place. And secondly, because as I mentioned earlier, I have really bad experience with low tier planes, and now after all the missions I decided to take this plane off and have a look whether it's able to fly and capable of it, and you saw those explosions, so it's not really good. Thus I can again kind of say low tier planes are kind of hard to deal with. Now we had enough money to upgrade our R&D, so we can now pick up surface samples, which will not be really interesting for today's episode, but for further progress it's always good to have a better R&D. Now since we're heading for a flyby at Minimus, we can definitely take our Mini Explorer too. So we definitely do know it's capable of reaching out into the further reaches of the sphere of influence of Kerbin, so there shouldn't be a big issue. And now you can see me, I strapped away the landing module, which totally failed in last episode, and I decided to stick instead of a landing module, of course, I decided to stick on a small satellite, which we might use, or which we will be hopefully using in the future to gather and fulfill those scientific data from Minimus missions. So if you have a satellite with a science device, so science experiment, in this case is too hot thermometer, we can always switch back to this craft and then conduct survey and then send this data back, and we get the mission the mission is completed, and then we get around 60 to 70,000 funds for free without really doing anything, and that's really something I'm like. And further upgrading all the KSP facilities will need a lot of money, since later towards the end of the video you might quickly glance see that the next upgrade for the R&D is over 2 million. So we need more than 2 million to upgrade everything. And that's really a lot of money, so starting already early with gaining enough money to be able to run everything we need is important. Okay, back to the footage on screen. We are at a low Kerbin circularization, so everything's according to plan, and now the plotting a course to Minimus. As you can see, Minimus is not on an equatorial trajectory, so it has some inclination. Thus, we are planning at the ascending or descending node our maneuver, so that we can hit Minimus when it's kind of crossing our orbital plane. Because since the Kerbal Space Center is aligned, well, it is on the equatorial plane of the orbit, of the surface of Kerbin, we're always in a equatorial orbit if everything goes, of course, smoothly, which is perfect for the moon, since the moon is as well on an equatorial orbit, but not for Minimus, which has a slight inclination, and thus this is the most efficient, least kind of expensive in terms of fuel cost approach to heading to Minimus. And since we have more or less I'm a little bit lazy, I decided to go there, since it's also pretty easy to have an encounter this way. You just burn it. Okay, now I welcome you guys all here to Minimus. It's the first time visiting Minimus on this channel as well, not only in this Let's Play series, as well on this channel. I haven't made any Minimus missions so far, so deploying our small recon satellite there for further use, and now decided to do some scientific work here, but I just realized that we don't have any science experiments on board except this thermometer on the satellite, so switch back, perform the scientific measurement, and now taking the data and bringing Valentina back to our main ship. So we didn't get as much science from the high space above Minimus biome, you might call it, which is slightly sad. And this definitely means we have to make another mission out here to gain more science to progress in our tech tree. But now, since we have a lot of fuel, I decided let's hit the moon. So we can definitely get an encounter, as you can see here. Now on an escape trajectory, and if we tweak our orbit a little bit, we get an encounter, and we get an easier trajectory to Kerbin. But then I've time warped too much and realized, fuck, we're on a collision course, and a literal collision course. So now dropping out of time warp at 10 kilometers, which is pretty late, full thrust, and let's hope that we can go. And this was really nerve-wracking moment, but in the end the explosion speaks for itself. Valentina crashed into the surface of the moon with all our science experiments, well, only 3, but still, and we have lost our precious main female Kerbinaut here. Mission outcome: catastrophic failure. You can't change anything about this. So in the 5th episode we lost our first crew. Yes, very bad. Indeed, very bad. But we can't just stay still, we have to move forward, since in real spaceflight history we also had a few casualties. Not a lot, but still we had casualties, and we still moved forward. This is also very important. So right now we have lost one brave Kubernetes, and our space program and our space crew also is kind of low. Our numbers are only 3. We're back to we are now only 3 Kubernetes. So I remember that we had earlier some of those rescue a Kubernetes from space around Kerbin or orbit Kerbin mission, and now I decided to jump into the mission control center to have a look for those and go and rescue one of them and add them to our crew. However, there were no missions, so I had to kind of jump forward and time warp. But since the footage is not as I planned it to be in order, so we're first going to build a new craft. But whatever, I'm flexible here. So we're going to redesign our Explorer the Minmus exploring craft. So it's still called Explorer to the Moon, but right now we're going to add a Science Junior and 2 goo containers, and of course a barometer and also a thermometer, which we did have last time, but still, who cares? We bring all the science experiments which we have with us to, well, in order to get all the points we need. Now adding on top of it a probe core so that we can control the without crew, which we're going to rescue first. Now kicking all the crew, now heading back into the mission control center as I said earlier, checking whether there are missions for rescuing, and there were no, so we had to time skip forward. Yeah, so after a couple of days we can see that there is a new mission available and we're totally gonna pick it. Science data as well, like I said, for those missions where you can just drop using another craft and get those data points. We still didn't have any craft, but for the few, well, yeah, for Minmus we did have one, so we can always use them. And now since we have already prepared our ship without a crew member, we can now target this Starsea pod, so the pod for this poor Kubernetes who's stranded in orbit around Kerbin, and well, head out, save him, and from there on our goal is of course to head back to back to Minmus and more or less repeat everything we did earlier with Valentina, just return safely home, not crashing into the moon, that is. Thus I also increased the footage speed, since again the same launch as we did in the very beginning of the video, and we've already had multiple launches in this launch craft, and it is pretty reliable with those 3 solid fuel boosters in the first stage, then those 3 liquid fuel boosters in the second stage with feed, and the central core stage which is which has after it the transfer / just a more longer trajectory stage. And now heading into a rendezvous, dropping our boosters and being way too slow. As you can see, I didn't account for me being on a suborbital trajectory compared to the orbital trajectory of this kind of pod, which from where we really want to rescue somebody. Now since we're not yet in an orbit, but soon we're gonna be in an orbit, so we have to, and we are behind of the pod, of course, we still need to raise our periapsis, but not too much in order to kind of be below the target orbit in order to be faster, since the closer you are orbiting a body, the faster is your orbital velocity, and that's more or less one of the interesting and important tricks and things to keep in mind when you are trying to rendezvous and dock 2 crafts. So, but as you saw and see at the moment earlier, you can see we're still skimming the atmosphere, and that's because we are in such a low orbit that we're still slightly below 70 kilometers, and thus we have to sit through everything in only 4 times regular time speed and 4 times post editing speed, which was especially for playing this game and rendezvousing kind of a pain in the ass, sitting there waiting for not quite half an hour, but still waiting until I can get everything into a good encounter. But after multiple tries, after long correction works, and then finally the final approach, a few, like one more good burn here and one more good burn there, we finally got into something where it's acceptable to switch over and take our brave Kubernetes out of his pool craft, which only sustains of 1 capsule. I have no clue why he was left there. I feel really sorry for him, really bad other space agencies here on Kerbin, but we have here the spaceship space agency has of course a really good reputation, and we saved those Kubernetes even though we lost one of our own. We shall never lose another Kubernetes, I hope, at least, that is. Now plotting the same course again to Minmus, as you can see here from the ascending node, jumping towards or flying towards Minmus, being now in the SOI of Minmus, and we have no electric charge in order to power our probe core, which controls our flight, so we have to manually point ourselves towards the sun, recharge our batteries with those 2 solar panels, which are on the very top and nose of, well, the very nose of our craft. And now we are at periapsis, even though I have no idea why especially at periapsis, but whatever. Now performing all our lovely science experiments, not only temperature but also crew report, pressure scan, and Science Bay Junior, Science Bay Junior, and the mystery goo containers, and more or less the same process as the last time. We're gonna also do an EVA report here, and now collect the different measurement data. Now we have a lot more science. We have gained a lot more science data from this time, of course, and well, then last time, even though we did lose everything we collected last time, even though it didn't really make a big difference since we had to come out here again a second time. But of course the worst part of today's episode is we lost Valentina Kerman, and that's a really bad blow for our space program. But this time we have still again a female Kerbonaut, which is also okay, well, good, nothing really special here. And now decelerating and going into a kind of encounter orbit with Kerbin this time. So raising now, since we kind of decelerated a little bit too much, and now we accelerate again too much since we are now at over 100 kilometers. Now we have a perfect approach vector, and let's jump right into the last part. So splashdown, of course, since re-entering is not really too interesting and nothing can really go wrong if you have a good heat shield, which we had, and then re-entering, and now we have a really interesting outcome. We have 166.5 science points, and with those science points and of course all the missions that are completed, which we will see in the next morning, since at night nobody works at the KSP. They are also working during daytime. So now we have here different messengers, all those contracts. We have completed a lot of good contracts which give a lot of good money, good contracts, good money, well, whatever. And now just quickly glancing over what we still have to do. So science from space around Kerbin, pretty easy. Plant a flag on Minmus, we're probably going to do in the next episode. Now for the last part of this episode and today's episode, we have 280 science, which is enough to unlock 3 of the 90 science point tags, and well, all one of the other ones, like of the 150 science points. No, 160, my bad, here. But this is more or less pretty nothing. I don't really have to say anything about this, so I'm gonna say thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next episode of Kerbal Space Program Career Mode. And on this note, Space Sheep signing out.